Boodschap.
Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's joined today's webinar. My name is Andrea Matochich-Cayley, and I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Law and Global Affairs at the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. The center serves as the focal point for all global projects, research, and activities at the law school. We organize a number of webinars during the academic year, and today's webinar is the first in a three-part series focused on Kosovo. Today's event is co-sponsored by the American Society of International Law's Transitional Justice Interest Group, and this is the first event of this week's American Society of International Law's conference. Today, we are going to hear from a number of esteemed panelists who have been connected to the work of the Joint Commission on Missing Persons. For a little bit of background, in May of 2023, Kosovo's Premier, Albin Kurti, and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić agreed to a declaration on missing persons. The two countries took the first step towards implementing this declaration by establishing a joint commission on missing persons. The establishment of the commission raises hopes that some of the 1,600 people who are still missing from the 1998-99 Kosovo War may be found, as efforts to find the remains of missing persons have stalled in recent years due to a lack of information about burial sites. The EU representative for the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue, Peter Sorensen, has said, and I'm quoting, "The objective of the Joint Commission is to oversee the implementation of the Declaration on Missing Persons, which aims to contribute to shedding light on the fate of the remaining missing persons, which includes persons forcibly disappeared, provide closure to their families, and foster lasting reconciliation and peace." Sorensen explained that the long-delayed Joint Commission will support efforts through a missing persons working group chaired by the International Committee of the Red Cross. It will help facilitate searches and resolve any disagreements, he added. The search for the remaining missing persons is a key element in the ongoing Belgrade-Pristina dialogue process to normalize relations between Serbia and Kosovo, which has been conducting since 2013. It is also an essential step in the process for transitional justice, memorialization, and for the healing of the families of the missing and of the Serbian and Kosovar communities. Our panelists to discuss this important topic today will be first Natasha Kandic, a human rights activist and founder of the Humanitarian Law Center. Natasha is widely recognized for her work documenting war crimes and human rights violations committed during the conflicts in the former Yugoslavia. She played a key role in collecting evidence used by international and domestic war crimes prosecutions, including cases before the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Natasha has been a strong advocate for regional cooperation, truth-seeking initiatives, and accountability, including through her involvement in the RECOM initiative on establishing facts about war crimes. She has received numerous international awards for her work, including the Right Livelihood Award. Jasmina Lazovic is the executive director of the Humanitarian Law Center in Serbia. She has nearly 20 years of experience working in the civil society sector in Serbia, across the Western Balkans, and internationally. Her professional expertise focuses on human rights, transitional justice, and regional cooperation, with particular emphasis on accountability for war crimes, conflict prevention, and memory policies. Her work also engages with issues of artistic freedom and the role of the arts in fostering dialogue in post-conflict societies. We also have with us Luigi Do, who is the head of the government relations for Kosovo and Albania for the International Commission on Missing Persons, the ICMP. Luigi has published over 30 research papers in psychology, psychiatry, and the related sciences in local and international journals. He's worked as a lecturer at the Pristina University Department of Psychology, and for over 20 years, he's worked in the field of missing persons and transitional justice. He currently serves as the head of government relations for Kosovo and Albania for the International Commission on Missing Persons. The final panelist, Bekim Blakaj, is the executive director of the Humanitarian Law Center in Kosovo. Since 2000, Bekim has actively engaged with the Humanitarian Law Center in Kosovo, initially as a researcher and later as a coordinator of the Kosovo Memory Book. In this role, he conducted numerous interviews with survivors and family members of war victims from all ethnic backgrounds in Kosovo. In 2006, Mr. Blackeye became the head of the center, leading the organization towards independence in 2011. He currently serves as its executive director. His expertise lies in transitional justice and human rights, and he's co-authored multiple research papers and studies in these fields, and he frequently lectures on transitional justice. Mr. Blackeye has been recognized for his contributions with the Meridita Award and with the Dobar Dan Award, as well as the European of the Year Award, which he received in 2024, presented by the European Union Office in Kosovo. Our panel today will be moderated by my co-chair with the Transitional Justice Interest Group and colleague, Claudio Palla. Claudio serves with the European Union's advisory mission to Ukraine as the head of the International Crimes Component and also as the deputy lead coordinator for the Atrocity Crimes Advisory Group in Ukraine. He has more than 20 years of progressive professional experience in the rule of law, justice, and human rights fields in Italy, Kosovo, Albania, and Libya. Previously, Claudio served as the international prosecutor and deputy head of the executive division and also as the chief prosecutor in the European Rule of Law Mission in Kosovo, ULEX Kosovo. He has also served as the head of Rule of Law and Human Rights Department at the OSCE presence in Albania and the head of the Criminal Justice Unit at the European Union's Integrated Border Management Assistance Mission in Libya. Welcome to you all and to our wonderful audience. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for this introduction, and thank you very much to all of you for joining us, and for esteemed panelists for finding time to join this important webinar. As Andrea was mentioning, the stated objective of the Joint Commission is to oversee the implementation of the Declaration of Missing Persons, to support ongoing efforts, and ultimately to help shed lights on the fate of the missing persons, to provide closure to the family and also to contribute to the reconciliation. At the same time, the issue of the missing persons remains a key element of the broader Belgrade-Pristina dialogue on the normalization of relations, and which adds an additional layer of political sensitivity to what is a humanitarian and legal issue, first and foremost. The issue of the missing persons remains one of the most sensitive and unresolved legacies of the conflict in Kosovo from a legal, political point of view, but it's a big issue also for the families concerned. Our discussion today will therefore focus on four interrelated dimensions: truth, victim-centered approach, accountability, and the broader question of politics and trust. Before we move to the discussion, just a few brief practical points on how the webinar will be structured. This entire webinar will last approximately 90 minutes and will be organized in three main discussion blocks. So we will be beginning with a discussion on the cooperation between institutions, followed by a second block on the respective roles of the civil society and the state institutions, and then a third block focusing on a broader thematic reflection, including truth-seeking, victim-centered approach, accountability. We will reserve the final 15 minutes approximately for questions and answers, and I would like to encourage the participants to use the chat box throughout the discussion to share their questions, and which we will do our best to address. In terms of format, I will be directing some questions to the specific speakers, and I will also be inviting a brief reaction from the others. As a moderator, I will also need to be mindful of the time, so I may occasionally intervene to move the discussion forward so that we can cover all aspects and allow space for the audience participation. I will then move now immediately with block one, which is really about cooperation among institutions. So we will be looking now at what effective cooperation between Kosovo and certain institutions on missing persons actually looks like in practice. So in particular, we will be focusing on how information is generated, shared, and used across institutional boundaries, including, for example, access to archives, identification of burial sites, and the coordination between different actors. Without further ado, I would like to pose the first question to Luigi as representative of the ICMP. And my question to you, Luigi, is from a technical point of view, what are the minimum conditions required for a proper cooperation between Kosovo and Serbia to produce concrete result in shedding light regarding the fate of the missing persons?
Uh, First of all, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to address this audience. And I'd like to emphasize the fact that ICMP is the only international organization with the exclusive mandate on assisting the governments to identify the missing persons across the globe, or missing persons as a consequence of conflicts and other atrocities, as well as natural disasters. As a matter of fact, ICMP has been assisting Kosovo institutions and all others involved in the process since 1989, starting with UNMIC, and then since 2008, EULEX, and finally since 2018 to the Kosovo government. ICMP has a cooperation agreement with the Republic of Serbia, initially in 2001, and then renewed on several occasions. And the same agreement, cooperation agreement with the Kosovo government, signed back in 2018. Before that, ICMP had a valid agreement with the UN administration backdated in 2001. So basically, the process, missing persons process per se, is complicated and extended in time. It involves different institutions, and in particular, in the context of the Western Balkans conflict, or conflicts in the countries of the former Yugoslavia, it involves many now new countries, and it involves the families as well and civil society, and it requires the first, let's say, the requirement is a political will. So in that sense, it was a very important agreement which ICMP had with Serbia back in 2001, which enabled ICMP to assist the government of Serbia to recover some 876 bodies from the mass graves in Batajnica, Bajina Baša, and Petrovo Selo, and later on in 52 bodies in Raška Rudnica, and additional 7 bodies in Kiževak. So all in all, that was a demonstration of how to say the cooperation. The situation was very interchangeable, in the sense that it depended on the political structures, on the relations between the two, and it was not always easy. Currently, ICMP is facilitating 2 mechanisms of cooperation between the parties, in this case, Serbia and Kosovo. One is it's a missing persons group. That's a regional mechanism established under the auspices of the Berlin Process Summit, where the participants are the countries of former Yugoslavia, including Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia as a EU member state, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the biggest result of this mechanism was the establishment of the regional database of active cases of missing persons on the territory of former Yugoslavia. And it's the first such database in the world, actually, where the former warring parties, if I can use that terminology, agreed to share the information and to harmonize the data. So basically, there are no contested numbers, and preventing in that way the politicization of and misuse of the data in terms of missing persons, and it's the scope of the problem. The other mechanism which ICMP is facilitating is, and it's fully functional, it's a trilateral meetings between Kosovo, Serbia, and Montenegro, and this is a work of the parties on the cases of joint interest. So all in all, Western Balkans countries has the unprecedented achievement in the world. Actually, it's a unique achievement because as a result of such a cooperation, some 72 to 74% of the missing persons initially reported as a missing persons has been now accounted for, and they're correctly and scientifically identified, and the bodies has been returned to the families. I mean, when I say this, that's very important, of course, but that doesn't mean the job is done, and the families continue to push for the seeking the right to know what happened to their relatives. So basically, the large number still of missing persons in Western Balkans countries shows how fragile the rule of law institutions are. So in that sense, we are working with both governments and with other parties involved, in this case Montenegro, to ensure that the cooperation is transparent, and it's especially toward the families of the missing, so they report to the families about the achievements and the eventual obstacles. Also, ICMP has been insisting on the domestic ownership of the process, and that has been a case in Kosovo where the international institutions had the executive powers on missing persons issue up to 2017, when they were eventually transferred to the Kosovo institutions. Of course, we encourage the parties to share the information, and as far as we are concerned, that job is not done yet, despite the successes which were during the process, and they are undisputable. I mean, this is a remarkable achievement. However, it's both parties need to demonstrate, and we recommended it in the last stock-taking report, that the parties needs to be engaged in the direct conversation and to sort out the remaining cases of missing persons in accordance with the rule of law principles and in accordance with the European Convention on Human Rights, as well as the UN protection rule persons against the enforced disappearances. So that would be in brief, and I think that I am exactly on time, Claudio, because I know that you are keeping.
Yes, you are exactly on time, and you already highlighted some minimum conditions, right? A database
but
for
basically the political will is the first precondition.
Yes, a database for uncontested figures, direct communication between the parties, and sharing information. Which leads me beautifully to the next question that I would like to address to Bekim, and it pertains really to operational reality. So, based on your experience, on your work, Bekim, where does the cooperation work in practice, and where does it clearly break down, according to your opinion?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel. And basically, for the audience, I would like to state that the entire process of cooperation between institutions of Kosovo and Serbia in the issue of missing persons is not really transparent. Hence, civil society organizations, families of missing, and broad public in Kosovo, and I guess in Serbia as well, doesn't have really clear insight on the level of cooperation. We are able to obtain segments of information from media, from short press releases, or interviews with representatives of governments of Kosovo and Serbia. So we really don't have insights as ICMP or ICRC might have. But to my understanding, the cooperation that works in practice, we can measure it with some really achievements. One of the achievements is that both parties has agreed a long time ago on the joint list of missing persons. So there are no disputes at all about the names, about the people that are in the a list of missing persons. Luigi already mentioned, but it's worth to underline that actually the number of missing persons since 2000, when the first list of missing persons drafted by ICRC have contained around 4,500 names, while today that number is around 1,600. And also having in mind that in the morgue of Forensic Institute here in Pristina, there are body remains of around 300 bodies. So basically, we are speaking about a smaller number than 1,600 because those bodies are not identified yet. Another good cooperation between Serbia and Kosovo on the issue of missing persons, I would mention also the handover of body remains of missing persons who were excavated from massive graves in Serbia were handed over to Kosovo institutions and then to the families to their families without in a very proper manner, without any delay. And that, I would say, it's a kind of good established cooperation between Kosovo and Serbia. Also, I guess that the level of cooperation is maybe better in technical or forensic levels. So from the information that we get from the representatives of different institutions, we understand that collaboration between experts is very professional and functional, and then joint or coordinated field work has produced some results. So identification throughout the DNA, the field operations were conducted, and so on. But mainly with the huge support of ICRC, so mediation, or data system of ICMP mentioned by Luigi. So those two international organizations have supported and boosted that cooperation between institutions of Kosovo and Serbia. But then where cooperation breaks down, and I would say that political interference has really create the barriers on the process of searching and identifying of missing persons. So work of the working group has stalled for a long period due to the political disputes, disagreement over terminology. I remember that for more than a year, they have discussed about that terminology, enforced disappearance, or different terminology regarding missing persons. And about also leadership of delegations. For instance, Kosovo institutions were determined not to meet with the head of Serbian Governmental Commission on Missing Persons because he was, by the Kosovo institutions, he was seen as someone who was member of Serbian authorities during the war in Kosovo, so hence they should not cooperate with him. And so even those political disagreements can really freeze the entire mechanism. What we are hearing very often as an obstacle or core structural problem is limited or no access to databases. So Kosovo institutions would claim that Serbian military or police archives has to have information about locations of massive graves or individual graves, or information about the fate of missing persons. In the same time, Serbian authorities are claiming that Kosovo Liberation Army might have or has to have some data archive which will lead to the information about missing Serbs and Roma and others. So this is widely seen as the single biggest obstacle to resolving cases. It is believed that there are selective information sharing by parties. Parties may withhold information about sensitive location, providing complete data, lead to repeated excavations with no results, or mistrust between delegation. And indeed, there was a case of massive grave in Rudnica. Parties had information about possible location, and they have excavated for several years in a wider area, and just after 3 years, eventually the mass grave was found under a building in that area. So basically, it's clear that some information were withheld, and the process was took too long. There are too many actors who would say that very often multiple actors are overlapping or are having overlapping mandates, like national commissions, prosecutors, and so on. So those are also kind of elements which are creating some barriers to this process. And also,
I'm sorry, Bekim, may I interrupt you, Bekim, because I would like to give space for additional consideration. One of the aspects that is, recurrent in what Luigi said, and you also mentioned. So the need to discussion among parties to share more information, and to the problem that some information might be available, but for whatever reason not properly shared. And I would like maybe to ask a question to Natasha in this respect. Do you see, Natasha, a real obstacle when it comes to sharing information between Serbia and Kosovo? Or is it a problem pertaining to the access of information, or it is an issue pertaining to the willingness to share information? What's your reflection about that?
Your question is very important, but it's not easy to give some answer, because on public level we always listen politicians from both sides about access to information, access to archives, and it's very important to have access to archives of Serbian military and police archive, and also information and archive of Kosovo Liberation Army. But my question is, I am not able to come to very important fact, how to organize both sides to come to a conclusion that is very important to open all information, because families are waiting for mortal remain 25 and more years. And, my answer is lack of political will. But what is behind lack of political will? Of course, some political interests at the moment. I think that both sides they don't have interest to open archives or open documentation who is not in public, because both sides both states organize war crimes trials without presence of the accused, and for them it's very important to protect their commanders, their officials who could be tried if Serbia or Kosovo open some information close until date. But on the other side, I think that maybe after declaration of missing persons, declaration signed by Prime Minister Kurti or President of Vučić, maybe there are some new approach, and we, is from a public perspective, we don't have access to understand what is their aim. You know, maybe they have some secret discussion about missing person. Maybe behind their decision to activate joint commission is something, and we are not familiar with that. Maybe, I'm not sure, I don't have answer. But my question, for example, is who source, for example, the last month, 11th bodies of 11 people, Albanians, were exhumed from a location in the village Bistraži. Who is the main source of those information? How to explain that today, when we don't have cooperation between Serbia and Kosovo Commission, we have exhumation of people who disappeared in April 99 in horrible action of Serbian military and police when more than 350 people were killed. And who is the source of information who could be the source of information about other mass graves in Serbia? For example, a very important source is our book about missing persons, because our research is so conducted that we have evidence that all people who were disappeared, disappeared on 27 or 28 April in the village Meja, a majority of them, their remains were exhumed from Batajnica. And now we have additional 15 people without any solution, without information about their mortal remains. But in our book, we said that missing Albanians who were last times in Meja, they were in company with many others, which their remains were exhumed from Batajnica. And our recommendation in the book is that checking again mass graves but in Batajnica is very important. And of course, many mortal remains of people who disappeared in the village Kraljane were exhumed also in Kosovo, but also, you know, they were exhumed from the lake in Lake Perućac. And for us, is very important, you know, to force institution in Serbia to check again, because it's clear, because many of them were exhumed from Perućac, and others, their fate is unknown. But how to from our perspective, from civil society, how make pressure on institution on both sides, you know, to seek and to help families to come to organize, what is for them to have the grave for the families. Existence of grave is very important. Possibility to come, to put the flowers, to remember about the past, to talk with families of other missing persons, other victims. And it's very difficult to see how to approach that issue, because today we have on both sides a very hostility relating clarification of the past. National narrative about the past is completely different. We cannot see that both sides are willing to be closer to help families and to say missing persons are different. Now it's important to help families to restore dignity of missing person. They are not talking. We have always hostility, always quarreling relating the missing persons. But I'm not sure that today we have time to expect really better relation. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe politicians on high level has a different approach because, for example, dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo is without any moving. But in practice, everything what is signed in Brussels process, we see in Kosovo in practice. Everything is going to be implemented. But yeah, I cannot say what is the main obstacle. Access to information on information on how to information share. I think behind that is political will.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Natasha, for your consideration and for on some of the issues that you raised about the dialogue between families. We will come back later during the webinar. But I would like to turn now to Yasmina. Since here we are talking about the sharing information, the use of information. In your opinion, how is this the available information? How is it? Is it first of all exchanged, and how it is concretely used? Do you think that there are gaps between what is known and what is actually used to shed light on the fate of the missing persons?
Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you very much. I would like to also express my happiness to participate in this webinar. And I would maybe before I start with your question, I will just say that for us as a civil society, we were delighted to see that the issue of missing persons has been included in this Brussels negotiations or dialogue, depending who is using which term. We always have a lot of disputes, as Becky mentioned, related to this dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia, and especially because ever since it started, it was considered some kind of dialogue that is supposed to fix technical problems between two societies and to make relations kind of normal, so we can normally function between two societies. And the issue of dealing with the past was not on the table, and it was kind of for us as a civil society who believe that two societies cannot move forward without addressing the issues from the past. It was disappointment, but the moment when missing persons debate was added to the table as something that is important for both societies, we find it very important. When we discuss about information sharing between in regard of missing persons, I think that we should do a little bit of zoom out and also think of how the information sharing in general about Brussels Agreement is when it comes to Kosovo and Serbia. And you are probably familiar with this expression that was coined within EU that is called the constructive ambiguity, which means that everything that has been agreed upon has been agreed in some sense that can leave the space for constructive ambiguity, which means that each side, both Kosovo and Serbian side, can interpret what was agreed in a way that pleases them the most, or which serves the best for their internal purposes. So it's quite often that we see when one round of negotiations is over, and then we have the statements by politicians from both sides, which state things which are opposite to each other. For example, these days or like a couple of weeks ago, there was this discussion whether Serbia is allowed to prosecute Kosovo Albanians for war crimes or not, and there was the media outlets were quoting the 2015 agreement in which Serbia signed that it won't prosecute Kosovo Albanians, but it's not written in these words, so it's one of the interpretations. So then, of course, it leaves the space for Serbian government to interpret it in a way it wants. So that's that issue very important on constructive ambiguity, which also has certain impact on the issue that we discussed today. In Serbia, in general, public discourse is that we don't cooperate with Kosovo, and that's what is in a public. And we are, Bekim spoke about some positive things. Natasha also mentioned, and Luigi, of course, what were some positive steps that were done in regard of work on missing persons. But I think that in general, the public discourse in Serbia is created in a way that we don't know enough about these things. And somehow I would say that we have a political minimalization of cooperation in place, like on purpose, that it is done on purpose. From some of the findings of Humanitarian Law Center, it looks like that authorities communicate more with the family members on these issues than with the public, so that this cooperation stays clandestine in a way for general public. But even for the okay, maybe we can actually discuss it later, but even the families of missing persons are complaining about their communication with the government, but maybe I can actually keep it for the second round. I also wanted to say that we should make distinction between what is sharing information, like we can come up with the solutions, like there is this new commission, we don't know enough about it, we know that there has been 2 years in between declaration on missing persons and the official establishment of the commission, and again the commission was established in January, but we are already in April and we haven't heard a lot about its work. But even if that commission starts working, if there is a website and we put all the information there and we really make it useful tool for the public to be informed about its work, that's one thing. The other thing is a commitment to searching for the missing persons. And there are a lot of things that our authorities can do in this regard. From using war crimes trials as a way for searching for or prioritizing cases which can lead to searching for missing persons. I can say that the war crimes prosecution here in Belgrade only in one case resulted in finding of missing persons, and it was a case in Croatia where bodies of 13 people were discovered. But in general, there are a lot of tools that we can use to show our dedication to searching for missing persons that we are not using. Natasha mentioned potential re-examination of already found mass graves as we have reasons to believe that there could be more bodies, mortal remains of missing persons, but unfortunately, not that much has been done. And I will just have the final point here about the communication, and also Luigi mentioned that in the beginning, like kind of touched upon that issue, how we need a direct communication between authorities in Kosovo and Serbia. And that has been discussed a lot, and we see on either side that there is reluctance towards really direct communication, like where these issues would be served, and that we are searching these moderated dialogues, like where we need European Union to facilitate these processes, or ICRC to be involved in this process, whose help is really important. But I think that the true conversations and true cooperation in this regard would be ones when the authorities really express political will, as Natasha mentioned, to sort these issues. And then in that case, we wouldn't need facilitators, but really show dedication to sorting out this problem.
Thank you very much, Jasmina, for this consideration and also for keeping time. But I mean, for what you are saying, it's clear that there are mechanisms already in place, and to a certain extent, they are actually working because you mentioned the joint list. All of you mentioned the joint list for missing persons, the handover of remains, also joint field work when it comes to DNA. Then my question to all of you is a little bit using a crystal ball because we don't have so much information about the Joint Commission. But do you see the Joint Commission as a mechanism that can improve, in a way, the cooperation in practical terms? Or is there a risk that we have, an additional tool, but then the constraints that you have described in terms of sharing information and possible lack of political will kind of prevent this mechanism to produce concrete results? So I don't know, maybe Luigi, I would address the issue to you because you are one of the organizations that are most involved in this field, an international organization. What is your feeling about this new mechanism that adds on top of already existing tools?
Look, Claudio, as I said, we had sort of a paradoxical situation in the last 5-6 years, right? Because we were hearing the narrative that there is no cooperation, and in fact, the parties never met directly in the last 5-6 years, for sure. The working group met twice or 3 times in that period for obvious reasons, for mainly political obstacles or whatsoever. And then we have a narrative saying the families, nothing is happening on the ground and nothing is working. And still, what I'm saying is this, that in 2018, Kosovo and Serbia signed the joint framework plan together. So they participated in that mechanism. They are participating in the trilateral cooperation, which is ICMP facilitating. And as Jasmina pointed out, I mean, we would be very happy not to facilitate, so the parties could go on. And it comes back to 2 things. So the narrative that nothing is happening, from the other side, in 2024, we issued over 48 DNA reports pertaining to that number of individuals, only for the new names. And that's twice more than in 2022 and 2023 together. So the process is ongoing. As I said, if there is a will to cooperate, the authorities will find a way outside the cameras or whatsoever. I'm telling you, last year we participated in the exhumation in Podgorica in Montenegro, and we did use some extreme methods to identify the person who was unidentified since 2001 in the Pristina morgue. But finding the ways to cooperate, the prosecutor in Montenegro issued a court order. We went there, dug up the relative of the missing person. We took the bone sample and matched it against the missing person who was in the mortuary, because the missing person in the mortuary had no living relatives. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the extreme cases where, yes, cooperation comes in play. On the other hand, after 6 years, we managed to work with both governments so they can meet the families and answer to their questions. This year in Shkodra, in Albania, the Government Commission of Serbia and Kosovo met together with the families and answered to their questions. So it is ongoing. And I come back in 2004 report of the Carlo Del Ponte saying that around 70% of the bodies has been recovered by 2004. So that means the process is ongoing, and it will go on with or without any whatever mechanism they call it. But how sustainable is that and how transparent is that? That's a different question. I mean, I can assure you that. Oh, I will go back to Natasha's questions about the exchange of information. Oh, that the fact that there are some ICMP has 402 unmatched DNA profiles for post-mortem samples from the mortal remains sitting in the Pristina mortuary. So there is a lot to work on. So basically, even if you don't have it, like a new, let's say, exchange of information in that sense, there is a space to work out and to overcome those situations. So cooperation in one or another form is ongoing. Now, is that sustainable? I can't tell it, but for sure, I mean, we will insist that they cooperate. Their cooperation is transparent and more direct than going through the mediator. We don't want to be mediators of anything. It's, for Christ's sake, it's 26 years after the conflict. So basically, the government should grow up and take the responsibility and fulfill their obligations, their international obligations, and the obligation toward the domestic legislation as well, and toward the family section.
Thanks a lot, Luigi. Maybe I will same question to the others if you want to step in. So in this context, right, that you have described, do you see a role for this joint commission? So what would be the difference, that this commission is supposed to make to produce visible results in terms of shedding the lights on the fate of the missing persons? I don't know who would like to step in. Becky, please.
Well, just I'll be really very short. Personally, I'm not really very optimistic. I don't. I mean, we know that the mandate of joint commission, they should oversee the implementation of agreement of already agreement, but basically they are almost the same actors. So people who are in the working groups and the governmental commissions of Serbia and Kosovo will be the same people in the joint commission, and I mean, don't see how they are going to monitor themselves. The only hope can be that the joint commission will be led by EU representative, and according to the agreement, the EU can impose some sanctions, or maybe better saying, can use carrot rather than stick to the parties who are not actually who are not willing to implement the agreed.
Thanks a lot, Becky, for this. Natasha, I see you would like to.
Yes, I don't have.
Step in. Please.
I think that joint commission is, as working groups are political commissions. There are no independent commission who will be focused on interest of families and issue of missing person, and it is the main problem. But I was very optimistic when I heard in Kosovo from people from.
I'm afraid we lost Natasha. Natasha, can you still hear us?
Yes,
Yeah, your camera is off, but we can hear you. So
I don't. Oh, yes.
okay. Here you are. We can see you very well, Natasha.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know what's happened. But
It's okay.
if you hear me, it's okay.
Yes, yes, and we can see you. We hear you and see you.
Okay. I don't know what's happened. But when I heard in Kosovo that EULEX team together with the official institute, Kosovo Institute for the Forensic Medicine, they prepared new checking verification of all cases. And and I thought maybe it could be a big step forward because, maybe based on my estimation, maybe 300 bodies of 300 people in Kosovo, it will be very difficult, to continue, to talk about how to find their mortal remains because Serbian police and army, especially Serbian police, they burned many bodies of many people in some cases and people in their houses. For example, in 98, in many villages in municipality Dečani, in some villages in Đakovica, Goden, and some others, but I'm not sure that there are political possibility for something like that, to say that there are no possibility to exhume bodies of people who were burned in their houses. Mm-hmm. That there are no mortal remains. And maybe if both sides, Kosovo and Serbia, come to some agreement how to deal with that issue, but if they see that it is a very dangerous issue, to go forward to the public with some kind of proposal, to offer some reparation or offer some kind some specific condition for the families, but I'm not sure that that it is easy to to come to that step, to recognize what is reality relating the missing persons. Now, I think on people who were burned in their houses and what is done by Serbian police. But it's very difficult to see, a real mandate and real concrete task of the joint commission. Maybe after some changes in Serbia, it will be some possibility, some space, but at the moment, it's very difficult to say, to be sure, what is behind us, behind public. What means establishment of joint commission, but only with one meeting. Maybe is something more, but we are not able to see.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, of course, we are at the stage now of speculation, but we will see by the passing of time whether this commission will become really operational and we will produce some concrete results. Until now, I mean, we have dealt with, let's say, the cooperation or lack of cooperation between Kosovo and Serbia. But I would like to turn now to the second block of our discussion, which really pertains to the cooperation between the society and the institutions. So, and of course, the responsibility of the state institutions. So, the idea is to look a little bit at how this roles interact in practice in addressing the issue of missing persons. And it would be very important for us to have your view and to consider the contribution of the civil society, particularly in the documentation, in advocacy, and support to the families, and how this work is integrated into the official processes, right? The ones led by Serbia institutions. And maybe to start with, I would like to turn again to Natasha. Natasha, are you still with us? Yes, I can see you again. Natasha, I have a specific question for you about the role of the civil society. So, to what extent, based on your experience, the civil society has stepped in where institutions have not really acted? I mean, is this something that happened in the past or is still ongoing nowadays?
In my opinion, civil society in Serbia and Kosovo, in the whole region of the former Yugoslavia, they manage, to deal with gap left by the governments and institutions. And it is the best what we could do for families of victims, for families of missing persons. For example, Humanitarian Law Center established platform, Voice of Victims. And it is a platform with voices of witnesses who testified in the front of the International Criminal Tribunal of the former Yugoslavia. Many witnesses testified about missing persons, about disappearances, and their voice is very important for memory, and it is forever. In my understanding, and I'm sure that we managed to restore dignity for victims. With our book about missing persons, with story about people who disappeared, about their families, about people who saw them last time. We gave human face to missing person. For us, it's not a number. We speak about the people, about with their name. Now we have politicians who and presidents of commission who is free if they choose to say the name of missing person is good thing. But very often we are faced with presidents of commission or officials who say 10 people, bodies of 10 people are exhumed without names, without telling something about them as human beings, about their life, about what's happened to them, who saw them, what is possible to do with, what kind of information about their disappearances exist. And we managed also, to organize many regional debates about missing persons. We organized maybe 10 regional forums inviting people members of families of missing persons to testify, to speak about their life, but also to put together people from Kosovo and Serbia, to sit together and to testify. And the biggest step was when it was in 2024 in Pristina. We invited, for example, father from his son disappeared, and there are no information about his body. Ramen Manaj to speak about. He was sometime before he was the president of Kosovo Commission. He spoke his very good way, talking with families of Serbs, disappeared Serbs. We invited also some members of family from Bosnia to be together with people from Kosovo and Albanians. And it was important because all of them, for them, it was important to speak in public, to speak about their pain. And you know what is important, you know, testifying, they, all of them say that their pain is the same as pain of family with killed people. But our law in Kosovo and in Serbia, you know, our law doesn't recognize pain of pain for missing person as pain for killed people. And you know, we listened many years story of families of missing person, and we understood how is important grave for them. Grave because it's evidence that their relatives who disappeared. They it's evidence that they were really a human being, that they were alive. But, you know, institution, they used our information, they used, but they are not ready to cooperate because I think they are afraid from our power that will make big pressure on them to discover all so-called secret information. And today, I think that we as an organization, I think on Humanitarian Law Center and Humanitarian Law Center Kosovo and other organizations from the region, we are focused on individual victims because we know that the leaders of victims association are very close to institution. And on other side, families are, you know, isolated. They are not close to institution. They're sitting, waiting for some information, and for them to be invited to come to the forum to discuss, to testify, is big recognition.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is very, very important. And actually, it leads me immediately to, a similar question that I would like to pose to Yasmina when it comes to the specific role of the civil society in terms of documentation, right? So because I understand from Natasha that there's not much cooperation, but what's your experience, your reflection about the cooperation between the civil society and the institutions in this respect?
Okay, maybe I will definitely speak on behalf of Serbian civil society in cooperation with Serbian authorities. So Natasha mentioned this Kosovo memory book as one volume. There are a lot of other documentation projects that the Humanitarian Law Center has done in regard of documenting war crimes and restoring dignity to victims and creating the lists of human losses and a lot of other things that we have done. Our efforts have been recognized as professional and credible by professionals in this field, but not necessarily by the authorities. So Humanitarian Law Center Kosovo and Serbia we are the only ones who created the list of all people who died as a consequence of NATO intervention or people who died as a consequence during the war from 98 through 2000. And I can maybe just say that the moment when the list of human losses during NATO intervention was published, that in general reaction was that of course, reaction was quite negative because we came with a list of 755 persons who died as a consequence of NATO intervention. But in general, public discourse in Serbia, there is this echo chamber narrative which has been repeated year after year, that between 2,500 and 3,500 civilian victims and 1,000 soldiers and policemen died during NATO intervention. So even though they have at their disposal the list which was created by the civil society and which has been credible and very minor interventions since it was firstly published, but still, like there is no confidence in our work at the level of the authorities to accept these findings. And basically it applies to all regional contexts. It's not only Kosovo-Serbia context, but it applies to war in Croatia, in Bosnia, and elsewhere. As a civil society, we have done a lot of other things. For example, we filed a lot of criminal complaints before the War Crimes Prosecution Office here in Belgrade. At the very rare occasions, they reacted upon our criminal complaints and initiated trials. In general, they are quite ignorant, and especially there, the more high-ranking the person is that we point out our fingers to, the more ignorant they are. So they are not willing to react on following our actions. I also mentioned this morning, Bekim and I, we were actually at another webinar where one of the film directors from Serbia was speaking about his experience, and actually he had support by Humanitarian Law Center to create both documentary and feature movie about mass graves that were found in Serbia, and he was pointing out to us on so many levels what kind of obstacles he faced in order to create that movie, from the financial support, which was absolutely impossible to gain in Serbia, to problems related to finding crew members who would work with him on this issue. Then how to get to convince victims to talk to him, like, and how to trust him that he's going to present their story in a relevant way, until the production of the movie and the fact that the cinemas and theaters were banned for him, so he wouldn't enter them and feature the movie, despite the fact that the movies got international awards, that these both products have artistic excellence. But they open up in this society very important issue, which public institutions, even including cinemas and theaters, are not willing to support, sometimes due to fear of financial restrictions that they might fear or face, or in general that they want to attract a negative attraction to them. So whoever is working on these issues, like from the Serbian perspective, is facing obstacles on various ways, and we are still struggling in finding a way to find a common language with the authorities so that they can recognize our efforts. And I must say that we have been complaining since the end of the war in Kosovo, but unfortunately we see quite a negative trend, and sometimes when we see our reports how critical we were 10, 12, 15 years ago, or we can't believe like how things change in a completely negative way. So what we considered not good enough 15 years ago now would look so ideal, but we are far away from it. So we have this negative trend, unfortunately.
Thank you, Jasmine. And I have to turn to the same question to Bekim. What's your how would you describe your interaction, this civil society interaction with the state institutions?
Well, basically, I would describe the interaction between institutions in Kosovo and civil society on the issue of missing persons, but in general on the issue of victims, as largely non-existent rather than cooperative, parallel, or constrained. There is, I would say, only limited collaboration of institutions with associations of families of missing persons, many of which have scaled back over the past 2 decades and are now largely inactive, lacking resources, lacking staff and visibility. As Natasha said, more worrying, several have become one-person operations and no longer communicate effectively with the families that they are meant to represent. In some cases, they have become associated with their institutions or even some political leaders. This corporation take part usually on the national or international day of missing persons, and it is usually around the marking of those days. As an example of such cooperation is as a success, I would say, is a small plaque erected in the memory of missing persons without the names, without any. It's really small one in the corner on the main square in Pristina. While civil society organizations are very rarely invited at events organized by institutions, hence they are intentionally marginalized, I would say. When it comes to cooperation, on the that pillar on the right to know the work of institutions and civil society organization goes in parallel, I would say, despite the fact that civil society has implemented a very serious projects and important ones like Kosovo Memory Book. Institutions, even though they get the information, but they does not recognize properly that work. Indeed, it is pretty much neglected in wide range. For example, Kosovo government has created an institute for crimes committed during the war. That's the name of the institute, and they are trying to do the same work. So basically, they are trying to overlap the huge work done by Humanitarian Law Center and Humanitarian Law Center Kosovo. We have a similar situation in the other pillar of transitional justice, which is memorialization, while different NGOs has worked pretty much on creating different memorials, exhibitions, even museums. For instance, Agency Kosovo has created a memorial last year on 30th of August in the International Day of Missing Persons. We have erected that memorial in memory of missing persons, and that contained the names of all missing persons which were counted as missing until that date. However, the institutions did not really pay attention at all on that memorial. Instead, they used that small memorial, as I said, in the corner in the main square of Pristina, sending their flowers on the national or international day on missing persons. But it's obvious basically that there is no will from the side of institutions to cooperate with civil society organizations, even in some cases when we invite them in our debates or conferences, very often they don't show up at all.
Thank you very much, Bekim. I have to thanks a lot, because actually I think what you are describing is really consistent to what we heard also from Yasmina, in terms of you are the gloomy situation in terms of a cooperation between the institutions on the one side and the civil society, which is doing a great job in terms of supporting the families, but also to documenting the fate of the missing persons. But if you don't mind, I would like to jump to the third block, which actually is meant to deal with specifically with some issues pertaining to truth seeking, to the victim-centered approach, and also the relationship between missing person processes as a humanitarian work and possible accountability. But since we are really running out of time, I would really ask you to make a very, very short intervention. So your main reflection on the issues that I'm going to raise. And my first question goes to Natasha. And I'm here, I would like to raise an issue pertaining to truth seeking and the right to truth that you already mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. So, how do you assess the current state of the truth seeking in relation to the missing persons, right? So, to what extent is the right to truth being fulfilled today? But Natasha, you have 2 minutes. So, your main consideration about that, please.
I'm thinking what is the next step, our next step, to continue with keep memory about missing persons, because we cannot expect from institution that, for them, memory about missing person will be a very important part. But for us, we've done everything what was possible based on documentation. But now we should think further how to continue, how to, for example, transfer our approach to other countries of the former Yugoslavia, because we managed to publish a very important Kosovo memory book about missing person, to establish memorial in Pristina, but in Croatia and in Bosnia, they speak about number without narratives about each missing persons. Is not easy. Is based on research. But it's very important because families of killed people, they have grave, they have evidence about their killed people, but families of missing persons, they don't have. They for them is need to have the grave because grave is memory, and it's very important to continue for us as civil society, and especially a Humanitarian Law Center and Humanitarian Law Center Kosovo. We should continue with new steps, keeping in mind dignity for missing persons is specific, very difficult task, but very important.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I'm very sorry
on the truth telling on public level doesn't exist. Only number about missing persons.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Quickly, maybe I would like to turn to Yasmina and Bekim about the role of the family of the missings in the process. Can we talk about a victim or survive or family-centered approach, if you like it, when it comes to shedding lights on the fate of the missing persons in the relationship between Kosovo and Serbia? I don't know who would like to jump in for this.
Bekim, do you want to?
Maybe I can start really briefly. Basically, again, I'm sorry for being really biased, but in general, families of victims have been included in all processes, mainly by civil society. Natasha mentioned voice of victims, different discussions, forums on transitional justice, consultations with the families of victims on right to know, or on establishing the RECOM, Regional Commission for Establishing the Facts about War Crimes and so on. But also, not only to, it's very important to include them in the initiatives which are related to the memorialization. Basically, indeed, you cannot create any any kind of memorialization without genuine inclusion of family members on that process, and that's why work on memorialization done by Humanitarian Law Center Kosovo is a successful one. I don't see this approach was taken by institutions which works on the issue of missing persons. I don't know, Yasmina, if she has to add anything.
1 minute for you, Jasmine.
Yeah, I will be brief. Like in general, I would say that the victims' associations and victim family members are instrumentalized for political purposes. I will speak again from the perspective of Serbia. Some leaders of some associations and some particular members of families are involved in all the processes, discussions, and cooperate with the authorities. But the rest of, especially those who are not supportive of general narrative on the wars in Serbia, they are not really, their communication with the authorities is not special. About the victim-centered approach, I will just say that the families of missing persons in Serbia have not been recognized as civilian victims of the war, which tells us enough about their status in the society. And Serbia doesn't have, or there has been discussion over the years about law on missing persons. That law is supposed to regulate not only the search for the human remains, but also the rights of families of the missing persons. And that discussion has been ongoing forever, and we don't have the outcome. So I think that these two examples the best exemplify victim-centered approach, which doesn't exist in practice.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. And my very last question now goes to Luigi. It is about accountability. Again, sorry, Luigi, we only have 1 minute for you. Just your impression about, the relationship between the cooperation between Serbia and Kosovo on the one side in the field of missing persons and the judicial proceedings, possible criminal accountability. How do you see the tension between the two?
I will try to summarize actually in a couple of sentences. So basically, what we do and relate to what Bekim and Yasmina say, documenting is a most important thing in all this process for the non-repetition and for judiciary processes. So what we do is when we start, and that's why we created this the IDMS, so-called Identification Database Management System. So it goes from the grave to the grave and documents every single chain, part of the chain, until the final identification. So it could be used in the courts, domestic or international ones. So basically, we provide the expert testimonies in the courts, but per se, providing the DNA report and the whole forensic process is like goes in the direction of the rule of law principles. So basically, yes, humanitarian, let's say, approach, it's fine, highly appreciated, but for us, there are no humanitarian court orders, there are no humanitarian exhumations. It's all about accountability, and those who participated in the atrocities should be held accountable in the court of law. So, and all evidences in the process could be used, because the first thing after you help the families identify their loved ones is that they ask for justice and bringing the perpetrators in front of justice. Now, how much was that a case in Western Balkans? I mean, even through the international ICTY and some domestic processes, yes, it was to some extent. But I mean, it's if you talk to the families, there will always be complaints and dissatisfaction with the judicial processes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Luigi. Thank you very much. We are already beyond the schedule, but I didn't want to interrupt you because your reflection was so relevant. And I believe we have now a time for maybe 1 or 2 questions if we have from the audience. So I don't know whether Julia would like to help us.
Yes, I have one here from Valentine. Could you please share your thoughts of possibilities of overcoming the lack of political will of countries on their way to create an effective, people-oriented national mechanism of the search of missing persons, especially in creation of strong, separate from criminal investigation institution without numerous different state bodies that are usually doubling one another, functions leaving families with no answers about fate of their loved ones. I think continuing, and how would you assess the search through criminal investigation in war realities when the number of missing persons is tremendous, or is it more effective to conduct two processes in parallel? One, investigation to find the truth, and two, search without criminal procedures burden.
Well, a complex set of questions. Maybe who would like to step in? I think it's quite interesting also the distinction between these two processes, right? And whether they should go in parallel, or it is advisable to, select one and wait for, a better time for the other one. I don't know who would like to take this question. Yes, please, Natasha, go ahead.
I wanted only to say that International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and also prosecution office here in Serbia, they were not so focused on issue of missing persons relating mass graves. For example, here in Serbia, we have only one case of trials, and the judges and also prosecutor managed to come to some information about mass graves. And I wanted to say that maybe it's a big problem that it was so difficult for prosecutors and the judges to come to information about mass graves, because it was, for accused, they rejected to talk about that. It was some kind of silent about location of mass graves during the criminal investigation and criminal trials. I wanted only to say this. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. I see Jasmine would like to add on that.
I would be brief. I will firstly comment on the question about how we can have effective efforts by governments, like how to come up to that stage where they would like to invest efforts in this. I really think that's quite complex question, but the answer is very easy, that we vote for the politicians who understand this issue and who will really want to work sincerely on these issues, and not as a precondition for joining European Union, ticking some box over there, but really being dedicated to and really understand the importance of this issue. But the problem is that we need such a politicians at the same time in different countries, because through the process of our efforts to establish regional truth commission in the Western Balkans, we saw when there is a support in one country and there is no support in the other one, how that process is jeopardized. So it's a little bit challenging, because we need decent politicians at different in different countries across the region. That's the first question. And the second one, what a little bit Natasha reflected about, I think in general, people would say that the Western Balkans, the right after the war, the focus was on the justice and criminal prosecution of perpetrators for war crimes. It was done at the international level, but also at the local level. But we were constantly insisting that parallel to these processes, some other processes should run. So we also had this attempt of some kind of or different attempts to establish truth commissions. We had different vetting and lustration attempts. We different initiatives related to reparations to victims. So we have done a little bit of everything. We haven't been successful in anything really successful. But unfortunately, we are at the stage where everyone feels kind of overwhelmed with dealing with the past, and we need to reinvent this approach to this, because we're talking how transitional justice mechanisms that we were applying contributed a lot, but not enough, and that maybe we need some kind of transformative ways to deal with the legacy of the past that would have this transformative nature to the societies across the region.
Thank you, Yasmin. I would like to maybe to give the floor, if they wish, to Bekim and Luigi for their reflection on these two questions.
I would like just for a moment to get engaged on the last part of the question. So it was about search for missing person through criminal investigation. I'm afraid that that would burden the success of finding body remains of missing persons, because obviously perpetrators would not be ready to give any information about possible location of massive or individual graves, due to the fact that then they would be prosecuted. So to my understanding, the process would go easier if there are two different bodies. Fact-finding body, commission, whatever, and then prosecution would do its work to prosecute perpetrators. So basically, if you have one body, then it's very hard to motivate anyone who has been in the chain, in that process, in the chain of hiding evidences and hiding the bodies of killed people.
Okay, very briefly, all what I'm saying here is that this success rate in Western Balkans was based on accountability. All the processes, ICMP participated in the exhumations of around 7,000 mass graves, never without a court order. All those processes in the countries of former Yugoslavia went through the court proceedings and through the prosecutors and court orders. So basically, ICMP strongly advocates for the rule of law approach, and based on the bringing, investigating the all individual cases of missing persons, as it is stated in the European Convention on the Protection of Human Rights, taking into consideration as well the humanitarian aspects of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. I'm afraid we don't have time for additional questions, so we have to really wrap up. And I would like to thank you very much, to thank all our panelists for this very rich discussion. So if I may summarize, what clearly from today's discussion is that the issue of the missing persons remains not only a humanitarian priority, but also it's central. It's a central test for cooperation, for trust and institutional responsibility in the Balkan region. So the establishment of the Joint Commission is an important opportunity, but as we have heard from our panelists today, its impact will depend on whether it can translate into concrete progress for families in terms of information and in terms of results. So I believe we have, during the webinar, we have touched upon the importance, the continued importance of institutional commitment and the role of the civil society in sustaining momentum for this particular issue. So thank you very much to all our speakers today for their valuable contribution, and also for the audience. My sincere thank also to Andrea Cayley, and also all the members of the ACIL Interest Group on Transitional Justice and the Rule of Law, but also to the staff of the Arizona State University for their invaluable support in making this webinar possible. We really hope that this conversation will contribute, even in a small way, to advancing the dialogue and cooperation on this very important matter. Andrea, I would like to give the floor to you for the last,
Oh, thank you. Thank you to all the participants as well as to everybody who stayed on with us for this webinar slash conference. I think a lot of the issues that were raised are coming up everywhere. These are issues that, Croatia didn't deal with because they rushed into the European Union, Bosnia as well, and the implications of having missing persons being part of an agreement, a political agreement, and those complexities that arise out of that are also something to consider. We will be having two more conferences, discussions about Kosovo coming up. They will be one will be in the summer and the other in the fall. One focused on the court, the special court for Kosovo, as well as a following one looking at the political developments between Kosovo and Serbia. Please follow the Center for Law and Global Affairs on LinkedIn just to keep up with our other events. We had Ambassador David Crane speaking last week, and we have a number of upcoming events concerning different regions. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Claudio. You are a magnificent moderator.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all a good evening. Bye bye.